It's even harder to measure things like environmental damage, and I think it's even harder to measure soil loss. As we all know, great civilizations have risen and fallen according to how well they took care of their dirt. And we're not taking care of our dirt very well. In Iowa, on the very piece of land where we grew our farm, half the topsoil that was there when Europeans first arrived is now gone. How do we keep that dirt? How do we keep that legacy? This idea of immeasurables, I think, gets almost completely impossible to calculate when we begin to talk about stewardship. How do you measure stewardship? How do you measure and monetize the value of the kind of scale of agriculture in which we can preserve those soils, in which we all know about the nutritious benefits. How can we, I'm kind of a dirt fiend, and I don't know how to monetize dirt, but it's clear that we have to do that, and it's clear that stewardship and small-scale agriculture that is concerned with preserving and sustainably continuing the practice is the thing we need to measure most, and I think it's the hardest thing to put into our calculus. The energy wasted in our present system is another really important thing to consider. A recent NIH study showed that Americans throw out an average of 1,400 calories of food per day. We throw out in waste. Imagine the cost of even just transporting, refrigerating, and disposing of that bulk. Already the average bit of food travels 1,500 miles from farm to plate. So you really are chasing down almost every bite of average food in America with a glass full of diesel. So we have a small scale which seems to promote better stewardship, and we have food miles that we want to reduce, and energy that we want to reduce. It all leads, of course, to local agriculture. At the end of King Corn, our farmer, Chuck Pyatt, who taught us so much, was forced off his farmstead because he could no longer make it on a 200-acre scale. In a kind of scene that has been played out across the world, and particularly here, in Essex County, those 395 farms that were there when I was 46 years ago dropped to a low of 195 by 1992. That's 200 farms less than were there in 1964. But then, of course, something happened. I think I don't need to repeat all the marvelous work that's been cited so far, but it was incredibly evident here in my little Elizabethtown existence. The farmers market came into existence in E-Town in 1990. The phenomenon has been repeated across the region. From 1992 to the present, the number of farms marketing direct to consumers in Essex County has nearly doubled. After making King Corn, as Brian said, I made a strange choice. Instead of leaping into my next film right away, I tried to see what a possible urban component to the growing sense that we need to create local and regional food systems might look like. And I opened a modest grocery dedicated to locally sourced products in Brooklyn. Now, aside from the fact that the grocery business, at least in New York, may be one of the only things riskier than documentary to put your money into, the project has remarkably stayed afloat and provided a window into the blessings and obstacles of trying to create such a local food economy. It was almost immediately apparent that there's a large and growing demand for these products, and that, as in the Adirondack region, a growing number of young people, heroes really, who for the first time in decades were returning to the land to grow food in significant numbers. What's really missing is the middle ground, the distribution, the connection, the infrastructure, which is why the work of Adirondack Harvest is so amazing and so necessary. Their achievement in connecting farmers to markets and creating and promoting real local economies in which the money stays in and circulates through the community, and in courting and winning ongoing support of government entities at every level, I think can be a model for the whole country. I would love to take one moment now and give them another round of applause, along with the farmers that they support. I also really want to commend the Adirondack Council for recognizing this achievement and in pioneering and promoting the notion that farmland stewardship is conservation. and that thriving human communities are essential components of this diverse region for which we share such love. This was not the way many people thought about conservation 46 years ago, and it is a much evolved view from the prevalent one when I was a kid. But I think there were a number of things that I personally got wrong back then. One of the reasons why I didn't actually finish hiking all the 46ers is that I figured that by the time I was 46, I would have a jetpack, and I would just be able to fly up to the tops of the peaks and register. Well, I've kind of given up on that one, but I still love the idea of space food. Maybe if I could someday, and maybe even just after the lunch today, meet with some of the farmers that are out here today, we could talk about a kind of local and organic space food stick. I think I could really move those down in Brooklyn. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, Aaron. Aaron said it the best. Our farmers are our heroes. They're quiet heroes out on that landscape. All of us in what we do, please, please, please support the local sustainable agricultural movement. Thank you again, Aaron, for that inspirational talk. I wanted a jetpack too. I'd just like to make a few quick announcements. Could the Adirondack Harvest representatives and Aaron and the folks from the Napoli's office please come to the side of the tent. We'll do some photographs after we break here. We will have dessert